Hi, going to do a real quick refresher video on decimal operations. We'll be covering addition and subtraction of decimals and multiplication and division of decimals. Alright, we're going to start off with adding and subtracting decimals. Important thing to remember about this is operations with decimals are really no different than operations with whole numbers. The important thing is just keeping track of that keeping track of the decimal point and making sure that it goes back in the right place when you get your answer. Okay, so when we're going to be adding up these two decimals right here, we have 10.87 and 5.08. Notice how the decimal points are lined up. Okay, whenever you're doing operations with decimals, it's important that the decimal points be lined up. Otherwise, it doesn't work, and this applies to adding and subtracting decimals. We'll talk about multiplication and division of decimals in just a moment. Alright, so let's just add it up. Alright, so we'll start on the far most right hand column, which would be right here. Okay, so 8 plus 7 is 15, but we can only put one decimal right here, so we'll put the 5, and of course we'll carry the 1, and then we'll add the next column. 0 plus 8 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Come into the next one, 5 plus 0 is 5, and then the 1 will simply just carry down. The decimal points will simply drop down, and thus the answer is 15.95. Alright, so we'll try another example. This time with no whole numbers with no numbers to the left of the decimal place here. So we'll have 0.02 plus 0.23, and we'll just, starting with the far right hand column, we'll just add them up. So 3 plus 2 is 5, and then 2 plus 0 is 2, and then the decimal point comes straight down, and the answer is 0.25. Alright, now we're going to do a little subtraction here. So we're going to subtract 5.0234. We're going to subtract 0.37 from 5.0234. Alright, the first thing you want to do is make sure that your decimal points are lined up. That's very important to keep you on track, and so that you don't make mistakes. You need to have your decimal points lined up and your columns of numbers lined up. Okay. Whenever we're doing subtraction, remember that the larger number needs to be on top. And after you make sure your decimal points are lined up and all your numerical columns are lined up, you need to have the same number of decimal places in both numbers. Okay, so if we have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers to the right of the decimal on the top number, we need to have the same thing on the bottom. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and add some zeros. Okay, 0.3700 is the exact same number as 0.37, but adding these additional two zeros makes this subtraction possible. Okay, and now we will just subtract straight down. Alright, so 0 from 4 is 4, 0 from 3 is 3. Okay, now you can't take 7 from 2 because 7 is more than 2, so we have to borrow. Alright, normally we borrow from the column directly to the left of the one we're working with. But in this case, this happens to be a 0, so we can't borrow something from 0. Alright, so we'll actually borrow from the next column, which is 5. Okay, so the 5 becomes a 4, and the 0 now becomes a 10. Okay, but remember, we're borrowing from this column, so this 10 actually becomes a 9, and now this is a 12. Alright, so now we can do 7 from 12, which is 5. Okay, 3 from 9 is 6. And then, of course, this is a 0 right here. And 0 from 4 is 4. And the decimal points just line up. And the answer is 4.6534.